Hello. I am a voice of Karolina Kucia, reading the paper with the title Parasite, the performer, mental hotel, and life in the gallery. The moving image you can see in the background is recorded in one object. That object is a small fragment of the series of installations and performances called Parasite. Quoting Michel Serres, "The one who plays the position will always be the one who plays the contents. The latter is simple and naive. The former is complex and mediatized. To play the position or to play the location is to dominate the relation. It is to have a relation only with relation itself. And that is the meaning of the prefix para in the word parasite. It is on the side, next to, shifted. It is not on the thing, but on its relation. It has relations, as they say, and makes a system of them." The parasite figure in context of artistic production will stand here for romantic and rebellious, professional outsider figure of artist, the one that is inherited after the avant-garde movement. Artists and art exercising parasitic language and media strategies starting from futurists, Dadaists, or later in conceptual art and semi-documentary socially engaged art. It will also mean another heritage of that tradition, the social place of artists, their existential conditions, meeting neoliberal capitalist structure, and that means contemporary structures of producing art and working position of any art worker regardless to his or her artistic expression. Parasite series is crafted for context of art community raising problems concerning economic, social and mental conditions of producing and exhibiting art within the art field, or when they are represented back into the art world, as it is in case of community art. That means meeting conditions of precarious labor, short-term employment, voluntary work, unpaid overwork, in project-based employment, freelancing, and self-employment. It is a peculiar mixture of being free, paid, and in-depth worker with being a creditor for art production. Art community is a community of work mostly based on social interactions. You could picture it as mixed life, work, normalized stress activity, mixing joyful, creative, immediate interactions, not based on drive for money, but rather on other genuine aim, with hardness of competing, self-branding, and narcissism. And this particular form of co-surviving, for the most, is a social interactions that usually ends with more or less collaborative production. It is also a community of depression, burnout, chronic uncertainty, compensated with sense of mission, discipline of passion, sacrifice leading to self-realization, or contributing to social or political structures. It is a community where the lack of vitality is an actual social threat. That thread is immanently present in its constant potentiality, denial or avoidance, and when finally materialized in a co-worker's state, it is actual threat to working community and outcome product, unless diagnosed as burnout and removed. Out of that structure, one of the various outcomes is a body of performer, and coming with it a model for social interactions and collective production. Alain Ehrenberg, in a book The Weariness of the Self, writes, "Depression begins to develop after the disciplinary behavioral models and the rules of authority and conformity to the prohibitions that assigned a destiny to social classes and gender collapsed phase, with the new norms pushing each and everyone to individual action, forcing individuals to become themselves. Because of this new norm, the responsibility of our lives is now fully assigned to each of us. Depression then manifests itself as a pathology of responsibility, dominated by the feeling of inadequateness. Depressed individuals are not up to the task. They are tired of having to become themselves. Do we, as contemporary artists and knowledge workers, keep producing rather a symptom of psychopathology than any cathartic experiences to overcome those pathologies? Depression. Bartleby, The Refusal. "I would prefer not to," he said, and gently disappeared behind the screen. "What do you mean? Are you moonstruck? I want you to help me." "I would prefer not to." "Why do you refuse?" "I would prefer not to." "Would you like to re-engage in copying for someone else?" "No, I would prefer not to make any change." "No, at present, I would prefer not to make any change at all." "I know where I am, but I'm not particular." Collapse of self. What to do with that self when history and memory collapses? This self that is organized for you, with which you want to now perform a radical gesture, when your self-reflexivity is patterned by social division, when self-aesthetization is a market asset, and when that cultural omnivore self use all possible resources of time, knowledge, mobility across social networking and bodily investment to refashion and retool the form of self in middle-class belonging. This all is spiced with longing for real personhood, selfhood, and individuality comes out and produce social inequalities. And multicultural otherness become a resource in propertizing of the self. And that round circle of escaping the self by creating another does not seem to have an end, and as such is a mean of capitalist production. Indifference to self-formation. Depression is a state of two forces fighting against each other. One is disintegration of self, that takes form of memory loss or disinterest and disability to perform the work tasks. It creates fears, panic, and distrust, inability to survive. That, on the other hand, creates a suffering of self that is an expression of drive to preserve and form of consolidation of self. That side of a process can linger in a form of self-pity or victimization of own trauma or labor situation, and as such is as well an action of consolidation of self. This has a symptom in withdrawal from the social activity or looking for a fix from the state of depression itself, as sport, drugs, yoga, and other self-help methods to deal with that state of a body. Friction between those two opposite forces, disintegration and consolidation of self, creates impassibility of the depression state. It contains a double drive to be able to collapse and to avoid collapsing. In my opinion, the first one, without its destructive drama of a process of consolidation, has an ability of something beyond self-formation. It requires a loss of control, loss of judgment, and loss of expectation what production means. It actually means only withdrawing from the self as a place of production and self as a cell of collective responsibility. The actor disintegrates in the act, inhabits partial relationships. There is a beast, a collective we live in, a minor being able to inhabit the productive relation of the major beings. It is a being that lives and eats on their side. It has an ability to form itself according to place taken and available resources. It is also a performance of hosting other on the body or trunk, about sharing a constitution, and about that constitution sharing conflicted realizations. Double representation of self. So how to make sense of that multiplicity of being? You can try the twisted way of representing, the split representation, the collective representation. The Don Quixote and Sancho Panza are traveling together to develop a fiction, almost an utopia, on the other hand followed with its immediate parody. It is created simultaneous representation as those two figures stand side by side. That is the only chance to grasp some shadow of real in the gap between them. And then there is a body. This body that is not particular but generic. The body that is almost impossible to inhabit. It performs these fictions, and yet it stays somehow indifferent. It is that body to be protected, and its unproductive form, or just indifferent one, without a purpose.